It's not personal, Mom, my son said, leaving me in the rainy woods. Right after I signed everything over to him. But when I walked into his office, he whispered, "You weren't supposed to come back. If you're here, subscribe and tell me your age." Then let's go back to the moment. I always imagined that when life started to shift, truly shift, it would come with fanfare, some loud moment that screamed, "This is it." Instead, it came quietly, with sunlight through the lace curtains and the faint scent of cinnamon in the air. The house smelled like cinnamon rolls, the same recipe I've used for over 40 years, the one Todd always loved. I had music playing low on the old kitchen radio, something from the 70s, soft and sentimental. I was wearing my favorite sweater, pale blue with tiny pearls on the collar. The one my husband used to say made me look like a first lady. Todd arrived right on time, as he always did when paperwork was involved. My boy, my only son, tall, successful, always dressed like he had somewhere important to be, even when he didn't. He kissed me on the cheek, held up 2 paper cups from that fancy place he liked and said, "Your chai latte, madam." I smiled. Trying to butter me up? He laughed. Always. We sat at the kitchen table. The morning light filtered through the lace curtains, casting gentle shadows on the wood. The forms were already spread out, held neatly in a leather folder. He took out a pen, his pen, and placed it gently on top of the stack. "Just a few signatures," he said, in that calming voice he used whenever I got flustered. "We've talked about this. It's just to make sure everything's handled properly when the time comes. You know, no surprises." I nodded. "I trust you." And I meant it. I didn't read the documents closely. I didn't need to. Todd had always handled things. The taxes, the bank accounts, even the plumbing service when the sink backed up last year. He had my passwords, my pins. I'd raised him to be responsible, and he was. He was everything his father and I had hoped he'd become. Still, my hand trembled slightly as I signed the first page. Then the second. Then the third. He watched, smiling gently, his hand resting on the table like an anchor. "It's just a formality," he said again. When it was done, he kissed my forehead. "You're amazing, Mom. Truly." I blushed. "Stop it." "No, really. Not every mother thinks ahead like this. You're making it easy for me. You always have." I laughed. "Well, someone had to make sure you turned out decent." He laughed too, then glanced at his watch. "Hey, don't make plans this afternoon." "Why?" "I've got a little surprise for your birthday." "But my birthday's not until Sunday." "I know," he said, standing up and stretching. "But the weather's supposed to turn. I figured we could get a head start. A little drive, just the 2 of us. Like we used to do." My heart lifted. "That sounds wonderful." He helped me put on my coat. I packed some leftover cinnamon rolls in foil, added a thermos of tea just in case. We drove off around 11, the air crisp and golden, the trees just beginning to show their autumn blush. Felt perfect. I remember thinking, this is what love looks like. My name is Nora Jensen. I'm 72 years old, widow, mother. And that morning I believed my son was taking me on a birthday picnic. I had no idea I was signing away my life. The trees had thickened, rising like sentinels on either side of the narrow road. Pines, tall and unmoving, lining the shoulder in rows so tight it felt like they were watching us. The GPS had stopped talking 20 minutes ago. No cell signal. Just the winding road, the steady hum of tires, and Todd's silence. First, I didn't think much of it. "Is this the way?" I asked, glancing at the thick canopy above. The sunlight was dimmer now, patches of light broken by twisting branches overhead. Todd kept both hands on the wheel, eyes focused. "Almost there," he said. I nodded. "What's this place called again?" He didn't answer right away. "You'll see," he said eventually. His tone was different. Not unkind, just distant. Almost rehearsed. I knew his profile, the firm jaw, the way he chewed the inside of his cheek like he used to do before finals. "Did you come here before?" I asked. He gave a small shrug. "Last fall. Hiked through with a buddy. No crowds. It's peaceful." The forest around us thickened even more. The sky was darker now, gray and heavy. A storm was coming. You could feel it in the air. A stillness, a tightness like the earth was holding its breath. You sure this is safe? I asked, trying to keep it light. It's a road, Mom, not a jungle. I looked out the window, suddenly aware of how far we'd come. No houses. No signs. Just a dirt road that had once been paved and was now cracked with roots and time. The car slowed, then stopped. Todd shifted into park. This is it, he said. I looked around. It's remote. That's the point. He reached into the back seat and pulled out a blanket, a plastic bag, and the thermos I'd packed. Come on. Let's stretch our legs. I hesitated. Maybe we should wait. It's going to rain. He was already out of the car. Just a few minutes, he called from the other side. I want you to see this overlook. You'll love it. I opened the door slowly. The air smelled like wet bark. I stepped onto the dirt road, my shoes crunching over loose gravel. A few feet ahead, the path curved into a thick grove. Todd stood there, bag in one hand, motioning me forward. Right this way, birthday girl. His voice was cheerful, but it didn't feel warm. Felt like a script. Still, I followed. We walked maybe 20 yards into the woods. I wrapped my shawl tighter as a breeze picked up. The sky above was now more charcoal than blue. Thunder murmured in the distance. Isn't this nice? He said. I stopped walking. Todd, are you sure this is the right spot? He turned slowly, looking at me. There was something in his eyes, flat, unreadable. I need you to do something for me, he said. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. What? I asked. Take a step that way. He pointed toward the trees. There's a clearing. You'll see it. The way he said it, too precise, too rehearsed, made my legs go stiff. Todd, I said, quieter now. I'm not sure I like this. He sighed, dropped the blanket. Mom, come on. Don't make this harder. Harder. My voice cracked. He looked at me, finally looked, and in that second I saw something I'd never seen in my son's face. Impatience. Not the usual kind. The kind you reserve for obstacles. You signed everything over, he said calmly. The house. The business. The accounts. You said you trusted me. My breath caught. I do. I did. But why are we here? Thunder rumbled again, closer this time. A bird darted from a branch above, wings flapping in panic. Todd didn't blink. You're not built for what's coming, Mom. I know you think you are. But you're not. You forget things. You fall. You don't tell me everything. You could have gone another few years. Or weeks. Who knows? But this way it's clean. It's natural. No questions. No shame. I stared at him, heart pounding. You brought me out here to leave me? He said nothing. Todd, you can't be serious. His face didn't change. It's not personal. The rain began softly, just a few drops on the leaves, a whisper of what was coming. I took a step back. No. No. Todd, please. I'm doing you a favor. I couldn't speak. My throat tightened. He looked away. I have to go. Please don't do this, I said, reaching for him. My hand grazed his jacket sleeve. He stepped back, avoiding my touch. His expression was blank, but something flickered in his eyes. A shadow of guilt quickly buried. You'll understand someday, he said. Then he turned and walked to the car. I stood frozen as the engine started. The tires spun in the dirt. And just like that, he was gone. No goodbye. No second look. Rain began to fall in earnest now, slicing through the trees. My shawl was soaked in seconds. I looked around, trembling. No road signs. No houses. No sounds but the rain and the wind in the branches. I was alone. I took a step forward, then another. My feet sank into mud. The path was already washing away beneath me. I called out his name. Once. Twice. My voice broke in the air like it didn't belong to me. He wasn't coming back. I stood there, shivering, heart thudding in my chest, the forest closing in around me like a curtain. And for the first time in my life I realized, there is nothing colder than the silence left behind by someone you raised. I don't know how long I sat there, knees to my chest, back pressed against the thick trunk of some nameless tree. The ground beneath me was cold and slick, and every shift of my body brought a fresh sting of dampness. My shawl had given up its warmth hours ago. It clung to my shoulders like a wet rag, heavy and useless. The forest didn't sleep. Even after night fell, deep quiet, absolute, there were noises. So many noises. Rustling. Cracking. Distant things moving through the underbrush, too far to see but close enough to hear. Every snap of a twig made my heart lurch. Every gust of wind sent my breath quickening. I tried to steady myself. Told myself it was nothing. Just animals. Just weather. Just my imagination. But my imagination wasn't helping. Not tonight. When I closed my eyes, I saw his face. Todd. My son. Smiling as he handed me that cup of chai. Calm as he drove us deeper into the woods. Still as stone when he told me not to make things harder. He never raised his voice. That was the strangest part. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He just left. Like walking away from a shopping cart at the edge of a parking lot. Like setting down a bag you no longer need. I think a part of me, some stubborn, mothering part, still expected to hear the engine return. That he'd come back, guilt flooding his face, saying, "I made a terrible mistake. Get in the car, Mom. Let's go home." But that part of me grew smaller as the hours passed. Eventually it disappeared. I must have dozed off. Not sleep, not really. Something more like shutting down. A flickering bulb dimming out of survival. My body ached all over, hips, shoulders, neck. Cold had crept in under my skin and settled like it belonged there. When I opened my eyes again, the forest had changed. It was still quiet, but not in the same way. The kind of quiet that comes just before morning. Gray light filtered through the trees, and mist hugged the ground like it didn't want to leave. I stretched my legs, wincing. My joints didn't want to cooperate, and my clothes clung to me like second skin. My mouth was dry. My fingers numb. My thoughts, fuzzy around the edges but holding together, like a thin string pulled taut. I stood. Slowly. One hand on the tree for balance. I brushed dirt off my sleeves, shook leaves from my hair. I must have looked like a ghost. Mud-streaked. Pale. Wrinkled skin drawn tight over clenched hands. But I was still here. Still standing. I turned in a slow circle. Everything looked the same. Trees upon trees, reaching and silent. But then I noticed it. A faint trail. Barely visible, just a crease in the undergrowth like someone had walked this way before. A narrow gap where the leaves bent differently, the earth pressed down ever so slightly. Maybe it was Todd's path. Maybe it was animal. Maybe it was just luck. I didn't care. It was something. I followed it. One foot, then the other. My legs weren't steady and I stumbled more than once. My shoes slipped on wet ground, and the hem of my skirt was already ruined. But I kept going. Holding on to that thin, invisible thread. I didn't know how far I walked. There were no markers. No signs. Just forest, endlessly folding in on itself. But then as I crested a small rise, I saw it. A road. A narrow, winding strip of dirt. Tucked between the trees like it didn't want to be found. No pavement. No lines. Just a promise. A direction. I froze. Something in my chest shifted. Not pain, more like release. My shoulders dropped. My breath caught. I felt a tremble rise up from somewhere deep, but I forced it down. There was no room for falling apart now. Not here. I stepped forward. My feet crunched over twigs and leaves. The sound startled me at first. After so many hours of silence, it was almost jarring. But it was real. It was me moving again. Choosing to move. When I reached the road, I looked left. Then right. Nothing. But nothing was better than nowhere. I took a step onto the packed dirt. My legs wobbled, but I steadied myself. I turned toward the direction where the trees seemed thinner, where I thought I saw a glimmer of open sky. I started walking. Every muscle in my body ached. My hands throbbed. My lips were cracked. But my thoughts were clear now. This was not where I ended. This was not the last chapter. I raised a child on my own, I reminded myself. I paid bills when the account was empty. I worked back-to-back shifts at the bakery so Todd could go to college and have braces and summer camp and all the things I never had. I held this family together with spit and string and love. If I could survive all that, I could survive this. I didn't know what waited ahead. I didn't know how far I'd have to walk. But with every step, I repeated the same truth in my mind. I'm not done yet. I didn't hear the car until it was almost too late. One moment I was trudging along the edge of the dirt road, legs aching, arms wrapped tight around myself, the mist swallowing everything more than 10 feet ahead. The next headlights. Bright and sudden. And fast. There was a scream, mine, I think. Tires shrieked. The car swerved, its wheels kicking up gravel, sliding sideways on the narrow path. I stumbled back, falling to my hands and knees just as the car jerked to a stop inches away. For a few seconds all I heard was my own breathing. Then the door slammed open. Footsteps. Fast, urgent. And then, silence. A man stood a few feet away from me. Mid-30s tall with dark, wet curls and eyes wide as the moon. He stared at me unmoving, like he'd seen something impossible. His lips parted. Then he whispered it, barely audible. "Mom." My heart stopped. He took a step closer, his face pale, disoriented, confused. Not like someone offering help, but like someone standing in the middle of a memory that shouldn't be real. "Mom," he said again, louder this time. "Is that you?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. He blinked rapidly, almost swaying on his feet. No, that's not possible. You." He took another step, as if drawn by something deeper than logic. His eyes scanned my face like he was trying to piece together a puzzle he'd never finished. I found my voice. Barely. I'm not your mother." He didn't respond. He just knelt in front of me, slowly, like his knees couldn't bear the weight of what he was seeing. Then he covered his mouth with one hand. His eyes were wet. "She passed 6 months ago," he whispered, more to himself than to me. "But you." I looked at him closely now. He was younger than I'd first thought. His grief was fresh, raw around the edges. His hands trembled, his breath shallow. He shook his head hard, as if snapping himself back into the present. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly, voice rough. "You must be freezing." He stood and gently offered me a hand. "Come on. Please. Let me get you somewhere warm." I hesitated for a moment. Then I took his hand. His grip was strong. Steady. He led me to the car, a silver Tesla, and helped me inside like I was made of glass. The seat was warm. The cabin smelled faintly of mint and something sweet. Jazz played low on the speakers. He got behind the wheel but didn't start driving right away. Just sat there, glancing at me, then away, then back again. "Sorry if I scared you," he said finally. You look so much like her." I didn't know what to say. "My name's Ethan," he continued. "I live close. I promise you're safe. I won't ask questions you don't want to answer." I nodded. "Thank you." The drive was quiet. Trees blurred by. The mist thickened and thinned. His hand stayed tight on the wheel, knuckles white, jaw locked. Every so often I'd feel his eyes flick toward me, just for a second, like he still couldn't believe I was real. 15 minutes later, we pulled into the driveway of a small house with a blue mailbox and a porch swing. "Home," he said softly. He helped me inside. The warmth hit me like a wave. Soft lights. Clean air. Wooden floors and framed photos on the walls. A home, not a house. He disappeared into the kitchen. I heard clinking cabinet doors, the low hum of a microwave. "Sit," he called. "Blankets on the couch. I'll bring soup." I sank into the sofa. The blanket was soft, light gray, thick knit. I wrapped it around my shoulders like armor. Ethan returned with a steaming bowl. "Chicken noodle," he said. "Nothing fancy. But it's hot." "Thank you." He handed me the bowl and then sat across from me, watching like I might vanish if he looked away. "You really scared me," he said. "I thought I was seeing." He stopped. I gave a small nod. "You weren't the only one confused." We both smiled just a little. Then, spoon by spoon, the warmth started to come back. "I don't know what happened," he said. "I mean, I do, but I don't understand how anyone could leave someone like that." I didn't answer right away. Then quietly I said, "It was my son." He didn't move. "He drove me out," I continued. "Told me we were going on a picnic. Then left. No explanation. No goodbye." Ethan's eyes darkened. "That's unforgivable." "I didn't think he was capable," I said. "You trusted him." I nodded. "You don't have to talk about it more if you don't want to." "No," I said. "I think I need to." And I did. Not everything, but enough. I told him about the papers, the car ride, The moment I realized something wasn't right. The night in the woods. The sound of silence when you're waiting for a son who won't come back. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "You can stay here as long as you need. We've got room. My sister and her son live here too. We're not fancy, but we're good people." "Why would you do that for me?" He smiled sadly. "Because I think my mom would have done the same for you." And just like that, I felt something shift. Not everything. Not yet. But something. It didn't take long for the house to feel warmer than it had any right to. By the next morning, the blanket on the couch wasn't just a blanket. It was mine. The mug of tea waiting on the kitchen table had my name on it, written in Sharpie by a 5-year-old with more stickers on his shirt than teeth in his mouth. And the woman who handed it to me, with her hair in a messy bun and baby food on her sweater, smiled like I'd always been there. "This is oatmeal, not gourmet," she warned. "But it'll stick to your ribs." It was the best thing I'd tasted in 2 days. Her name was Mia, Ethan's younger sister. 28, full of dry humor and quiet strength. She worked remote in tech support, raised her son Jamie with patience and grace, and had an uncanny ability to know exactly when someone needed space. And when they needed a warm hand on the shoulder. Jamie, her son, took to me instantly. "You can sit in that chair," he told me solemnly, pointing to the one with a green cushion. "That's the one my grandma liked best." I didn't ask. I just sat there. I spent most of that first day sleeping. My body finally allowed itself to let go. I woke to soft laughter down the hallway, the smell of grilled cheese, a cartoon theme song looping in the background. Not my house. Not my life. But somehow it felt like a place I belonged. When I stepped into the kitchen later that evening, Ethan looked up from his laptop and smiled. "You look better," he said. "Color's back in your cheeks. I think I'm starting to feel human again." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit. I made tea. Real loose-leaf stuff, not that bagged nonsense." "Your mom's influence?" He nodded. "Completely." I sat. The kitchen was softly lit, the windows reflecting the last pink of sunset. Jamie was asleep in the next room, and Mia was reading with earbuds in, curled up in the corner chair. Peace. That's what it felt like. Not silence, peace. Ethan took a sip of his tea, then looked at me carefully. "I still can't get over how much you look like her," he said. "But I know you're not her. I think that's actually part of why I wanted you to stay." I watched him closely, waiting. He set his mug down. "I don't know who you are, Nora. I mean, I know what you've told me, but not the rest. And that's okay. You can tell me in your time or not at all." I started to respond, but he held up a hand gently. "What I do know is this. Any man who could bring his mother to a place like that and leave her doesn't deserve to say the word family." I swallowed hard. "I don't know how someone gets there," he said quietly. "But I know what the opposite looks like. I grew up with a mom who kept everything together with duct tape and prayer. She loved fiercely, worked 2 jobs, never gave up on anyone." He looked me in the eye. "I see that in you." I felt something catch in my chest. Something deep, soft, old. Ethan leaned forward. His voice didn't shake, but it pressed against something sacred. "I don't care how we met, or why, or how weird this is. You walked out of that forest, and the second I saw you, I knew you're my family now. And I take care of my family." I blinked quickly. "You don't even know me." He smiled. "Maybe not. But I think I will." The tea had gone cold in my hands, but my heart was warm in a way I hadn't felt in years. No one had spoken to me like that since before my husband passed. Since Todd was a boy and still needed me for more than just a signature. Mia came in a moment later, barefoot, carrying a laundry basket. "You okay, Nora?" she asked like it was the most natural thing in the world. I nodded. "More than okay." "Good. Because tomorrow we're doing pancakes, and Jamie's very strict about his pancake rules." I smiled. It was ridiculous. And perfect. That night, before bed, Ethan knocked softly on the guest room door. The one they'd cleared out for me with extra pillows and a little vase of flowers from the backyard. "I meant what I said earlier," he told me. "You're not alone." "I'm starting to believe you," I said. He gave a short nod and turned to go, then paused. "One more thing." he said over his shoulder. When you're ready, just say the word. We'll figure out how to fix what he tried to break. I didn't answer right away. But inside, something old and tired sat up straight and smiled. There's a certain kind of silence that only comes from watching someone else work in absolute focus. That's the sound I woke up to on Monday morning. The house was quiet. Jamie at preschool, Mia on a call in her bedroom, but from the dining room I could hear the low tapping of keys. A quiet rhythm. Precise. Patient. Relentless. Ethan. I found him hunched over his laptop, a second monitor plugged in beside him, eyes scanning lines of text faster than I could read them. His fingers danced across the keyboard, pausing only to sip from the enormous mug he refilled at least twice an hour. You haven't moved in 2 hours, I said, stepping into the room. He didn't look up. 3, actually. You planning to blink today? A tiny smile ghosted across his lips. Maybe. If something surprises me. I stepped closer. The screen was covered in browser tabs, legal databases, property records, GPS maps, email headers. What are you doing? I asked. His fingers stilled. He finally looked up at me. Building a trail. A trail. He nodded. A digital one. Everyone leaves one. Even the smart ones. Especially the ones who think they're smarter than everyone else. I sat slowly across from him. Todd. He didn't answer. Didn't need to. He turned one screen toward me. A public real estate database. My name, had vanished from the title of the house in Alexandria. The house I'd lived in for 30 years. The one with the chipped paint and the garden bench I stained by hand. Transferred at 2:14 a.m., Ethan said. 12 hours after he left you in the woods. My stomach turned. Then, he continued, he rerouted your bank accounts. Not closed but shifted control. Set up new access points routed through a shell company. Name on the papers. His. He pulled up an email thread. This one's from 6:32 a.m. Next day, he said. Subject line. Finalization of trust document. Attached your signed will. Witness signatures. Fake. Same IP address, 2 different names. I stared at the screen. How did you get all this? He gave me a tired smile. I do software infrastructure and data recovery for defense contractors. And sometimes, I help a neighbor find her cheating boyfriend's burner phone. I managed a weak laugh. That second one sounds more fun. He shrugged. It was. This one's personal. He opened a browser tab labeled Activity Logs. His Google history was surprisingly careless, Ethan said, almost annoyed. He didn't even use incognito mode. He scrolled through a list of search queries, each one punching the air from my lungs like a fist. How to legally remove a parent from property title. Can dementia affect will validity? Ways to contest a living trust. How to explain missing elderly person. What happens if a body is never found? Elderly woman missing no foul play. And then quietly. How to stage a peaceful disappearance. I didn't speak. Couldn't. Ethan pushed his laptop slightly away and leaned in, elbows on the table. You weren't meant to come back, he said. Not cruelly. Just honestly. I stared at the screen. He thought this was done, I said. My voice sounded far away. He counted on it. The room spun slightly. I gripped the edge of the table. All those moments I'd brushed off. The hesitations. The insistence on the paperwork. The calm. It hadn't been calm. It had been calculation. I wasn't his mother in that moment. I was an obstacle. Ethan watched me carefully, gauging my reaction, but he didn't rush to comfort me. I was grateful for that. I didn't want soft hands or gentle words. I wanted truth. And he gave it. He opened one last tab. A GPS overlay of the park where Todd had taken me. Cameras, he said. Mostly motion-activated wildlife cams. But 2 caught the car. Yours. Coming in. Not going out. He clicked. The video played. My car. My face in the passenger seat. Todd behind the wheel. Then nothing. He looked at me. He knew the coverage zones. Waited. Walked out a different trail. Picked up by a ride service 20 minutes later. To D.C. He paused. To a notary office. Of course. That was the final step. The signature on the documents he'd already filled in. He probably smiled at the receptionist. Probably said it was all pre-approved. He was good at that, seeming confident. In control. Trustworthy. I gripped the edge of the table harder. He planned everything. Ethan nodded. Down to the hour. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then he said, I know this is a lot. It's more than that. He leaned back in his chair. I meant what I said before, Nora. He gave up the right to be your family. That title's mine now. And I protect what's mine. There was a quiet strength in his voice. No bravado, just certainty. I looked at the screen again. At the trail Todd left behind, thinking no one would ever follow it. But we had. And now I wasn't alone. Sometimes revenge doesn't start with a bang. It starts with a clipboard and a lanyard. Ethan's plan was simple on paper, but brilliant in the way only someone who understands both people and machines can make it. He didn't storm into Todd's world, he slipped into it, quiet as a breeze, wearing a polo shirt and a service badge. 3 weeks after we found the digital trail, he applied through a third-party tech contractor. The company Todd used to outsource IT maintenance for his chain of upscale grocery stores. The listing was vague. Temporary POS support, flexible hours, immediate start. Ethan didn't need a resume. He already knew the system better than the people who built it. He shaved, wore neutral tones, borrowed glasses for effect. 2 days later he was in. First day's Thursday. He told me casually over dinner. They're short-staffed at the flagship store. I raised an eyebrow. You mean his store? Right at the center of his little empire, Ethan said. POS diagnostics, back-office terminal access, and bonus, full network visibility. I took a sip of tea. He won't recognize you? Not unless I show up with you on my arm. We didn't talk about what would happen after he was in. We didn't need to. The car was cold that morning. I wrapped the blanket tighter around my legs and sipped from the thermos Ethan left on the console. Peppermint tea. Just enough heat to keep me from shivering. I sat parked across the street from the corporate building. It was glass and steel and ambition, clean lines, minimalist signage, enough open space to make a person feel small. The parking lot filled slowly. Expensive sedans, mid-range SUVs. People with coffee cups and Bluetooth earpieces, scrolling their phones even as they walked. I spotted him at 8:16. Todd, wearing a pressed gray jacket, hair neatly styled. Phone in one hand, messenger bag in the other. Smiling at something. Probably a text. Maybe from a client. Or his lawyer. Or someone congratulating him on a smooth transition of assets. He looked happy. Effortlessly, undeniably fine. As if nothing had ever happened. As if he hadn't driven his mother into the woods and disappeared. My fingers tightened around the cup. I watched him walk toward the building. Confident, calm, joking with the front desk guard. The same smile he wore when he handed me a cup of chai and said, just a little birthday surprise. He didn't know I was watching. Didn't know that the thing he thought was gone had teeth. Ethan slipped in without issue. He texted from the break room. He passed me twice. Didn't blink. Office Wi-Fi open. Logged into Storemaster terminal already. He has no idea what's coming. Later, from the maintenance corridor. Found private server access behind firewalled admin node. Everything's here, HR files, emails, client contracts. Then, he's been prepping a property transfer overseas. He really thought you weren't coming back. I sat in the car and stared through the windshield. The building shimmered faintly in the morning light. Clean. Untouched. Cold. Inside, my son was building a future on the foundation of my absence. And now we were inside that foundation brick by brick. That evening, Ethan came back quiet. Not solemn, focused. He laid his laptop on the table, flipped it open. Photos. PDFs, voice memos. Email threads. A message dated 3 days after he left me in the woods. Let's proceed with the Belize account setup. Everything's settled on my end. Another with a scanned signature. Per power of attorney, full control has passed to me. Confirm wire. Then the one that made me sit up. No contact necessary. Per physician's note. Mental decline was evident. I have it on file. I stared at the screen. I never saw a physician, I said. Ethan nodded. The note's fake. Sloppy too. He used a template from a law firm blog. Silence stretched between us. Then I whispered, he really thought I was gone. Ethan looked me in the eye. Calm. Unshaken. He thinks the story is over. I nodded slowly. But we're just turning the page. I always wondered what it would feel like. Walking into a room and watching someone realize you're not supposed to exist. Turns out, it's quieter than I imagined. No gasps. No screams. Just a long, thin moment when time stops. When a man forgets how to breathe, how to move, how to hide the monster behind his eyes. And that's what I saw in his eyes. A monster. Not rage. Not grief. Fear. Because I wasn't supposed to be here. But I was. It took Ethan and me 10 days to put it all together. Every lie. Every forged file. Every misstep Todd made because he was too confident, too quick, too convinced of his own cleverness. We had everything. Falsified physicians' notes, emails with offshore instructions, timestamps on asset transfers made within hours of my disappearance. He didn't even try to stagger it. He assumed no one would check. He assumed I wouldn't be around to notice. That was his mistake. Ethan's lawyer, sharp as a tack, cool as stone, had already begun moving. Quiet letters to banking institutions, preliminary injunctions, discreet conversations with investigators who specialized in financial elder abuse. It wasn't just personal now. It was criminal. But before the world could come knocking at his door, I wanted to look him in the eye. I wanted him to see that I had not vanished. That the woman he tried to erase was now standing tall. The disguise wasn't elaborate. Just strategic. Tailored navy suit. Modest heels. Silver hair pinned tight at the nape of my neck. No makeup except for a nude lipstick and the kind of dark-rimmed glasses that said I meant business, not conversation. Ethan dropped me off 2 blocks away. Are you sure? He asked. I gave a small nod. It has to be me. He reached across the seat and squeezed my hand once. Remember, he doesn't hold the power anymore. You do. Then I stepped out of the car and walked. Every step toward that building was steady, every breath purposeful. The receptionist looked up when I entered the lobby. Good morning, she said. Can I help you? I'm here to see Mr. Hammond, I said. He's expecting me. Mrs. Rose. She blinked once, checked her screen, then nodded. Conference room B upstairs. I smiled. Perfect. Up the elevator. Down the hall. Then his voice. Loud. Laughing. He was already in the room. Entertaining someone. Probably sealing another deal built on other people's bones. I opened the door without knocking. He turned toward the sound, still smiling, and then he saw me. And everything changed. He went pale first. Completely drained. Then he took half a step back like his own body didn't trust the room anymore. Nora, he breathed. No. No how? Hello, Todd, I said calmly. It's Mrs. Rose today, actually. He stared. Words failed him. His eyes darted around the room like he was looking for a trapdoor. Something. Anything. But there was no escape. Just me. You're gone, he whispered. I raised an eyebrow. Funny. You didn't seem so broken up about it. I saw the forest. The rain. His voice cracked. You left me there, I corrected. You didn't see anything. You ran. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I took another step into the room and shut the door behind me. I've been watching you, I said. From the car. From the documents. From the code you thought no one would read. He swallowed hard. We have it all, Todd. The fake physician note. The fraudulent transfer documents. The email threads with foreign wire instructions. Your little exit strategy. His shoulders sagged. But what really gets me, I added softly, is how quickly you moved. 12 hours. That's all it took for you to erase me. It wasn't supposed to, he stammered. To what? I said sharply. Be found? Be remembered? He looked like a boy again. Not the man who smiled as he signed away my life, but a small trembling boy who'd been caught with his hands deep in something rotten. I was your mother. My voice didn't shake. I carried you. I fed you when I couldn't feed myself. I worked night shifts and double shifts. I signed your college loans. And you left me in the dirt. He turned away ashamed but not enough. That's when I stepped closer. Close enough that he could see it in my eyes. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. You tried to erase me, Todd. He looked at me eyes wide. I leaned in. But you forgot one thing. I paused just long enough for him to flinch. The thing about burying a seed is, it grows. Then I smiled. You buried me in the dirt, son. And I grew back. The courthouse smelled like paper and old wood. The kind of place where decisions get made in voices just above a whisper. No shouting. No drama. Just slow, steady consequence. I sat near the front between two attorneys in gray suits. My own suit was navy again. My glasses polished, hands folded in my lap. The courtroom was full. Some press. A few people I didn't recognize. And him. Todd sat 2 rows ahead. He didn't look back. The months leading to this moment were long, deliberate. Ethan and the legal team had worked around the clock. Sifting, filing, building a case from the digital wreckage Todd left behind. Fraud, they called it. Financial manipulation. Exploitation of a vulnerable adult. But no one in that courtroom could miss what really happened. He tried to erase me. Quietly. Thoroughly. And he almost succeeded. Almost. The prosecutor spoke first. They laid it out without flair. The manipulated trust, the altered documents, the shell transfers, the timing. They showed how Todd forged evaluations to disqualify me from my own accounts, how he reassigned property without valid consent, how he accessed assets that weren't his to touch. They didn't need emotion. The numbers spoke loud enough. Then came the part that made my fingers curl. Surveillance footage. GPS logs. Cell tower pings. The timeline down to the hour of the day he drove me out and left me behind. They never used heavy words. No one said what he meant to happen. They didn't have to. The absence said it all. I was called to the stand late in the day. The courtroom quieted when I stood. I could feel his eyes on me then for the first time in months. He didn't recognize the woman who rose to face him. That woman didn't tremble. She didn't flinch. She looked like someone who'd walked through fire and come out clean. I took the oath, adjusted the mic, and spoke. My name is Nora Hammond, I began. I'm 70 years old. I was a mother. A wife. I ran a business. I baked pies for school fundraisers and paid my mortgage on time for 40 years. I paused. And last fall, my son attempted to take all of that away. There was no anger in my voice. Just clarity. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten me. He smiled and handed me tea. Told me we were going on a drive. A picnic. And then he disappeared. I felt the weight of the room holding its breath. He used my trust. My love. My fatigue. He counted on the world not asking questions. On no one noticing. And on me staying quiet. I turned slightly, looking toward the defense table. Not to him but near him. But I came back. I looked out at the courtroom. This isn't about revenge, I said. I'm not here to punish him. That's not my role. I leaned forward slightly. This is about setting the record right. About standing up for people who are told they're too old to understand, too tired to fight back. It's about reminding everyone that truth doesn't expire with age. A few people shifted in their seats. I was not erased, I finished. And I'm not going away quietly. Then with a small smile. This is not revenge. This is restoration. And sometimes, restoration wears glasses and bakes lemon pie. There was silence. Then the judge nodded slowly. And I stepped down. The case closed in under a week. The forged will was invalidated. Every asset Todd moved was returned. The businesses, the home, the accounts, all placed under the protection of a private trust in my name. He wasn't sent away. Not yet. That part was still pending. But something far deeper had already happened. He lost the one thing he never expected to control. That night Ethan baked me a pie. Lemon, of course. He handed it to me like a trophy. Then raised a glass of sparkling cider across the kitchen island. To Nora, he said, who rewrote the ending. I clinked my glass against his. And smiled. Some mornings I wake before the sun and just listen. To the quiet creak of the house settling. To the soft sound of Jamie snoring down the hall. To Mia's coffee grinder whirring. followed by the click of her favorite mug against the counter. And if I wait long enough, there's Ethan, barefoot on the porch, sipping tea like he invented the ritual. This is what home feels like. Not the house I built before, but the one I found when everything else fell apart. The garden behind the house had been little more than weeds when I arrived. Now it's full of life: tomatoes, herbs, little rows of snap peas and marigolds. Every morning I water the beds, pinch off the tired leaves, whisper to the seedlings like they're old friends. Jamie calls it Grandma's jungle. He helps me plant things, sometimes with too much enthusiasm, but always with heart. He likes to dig holes and name the worms. One of them is called Mr. Wiggles II. I pretend not to notice the first one never made it. Inside I bake lemon pies on Wednesdays, apple crumble on Sundays, banana bread when someone looks sad. Mia says the whole neighborhood smells like a festival. I tell her it's just butter and stubbornness. And most afternoons I write. The manuscript lives in a thick blue folder on the kitchen table. I call it notes from the second half. Some pages are sharp. Some are soft. All of them are true. Ethan set up a writing nook for me by the window. You've got things to say, he told me. People need to hear them. So I write. About what happened. About what people don't see when it comes to families and fear. About how betrayal doesn't always shout. It sometimes whispers and smiles. About the moments when you think you're finished, but you're actually just beginning. Last month we launched the foundation. It's small now. A website. A hotline. A legal team on call. But the mission is clear. To help older adults who've been pushed aside, isolated, tricked, forgotten. We called it the Second Root Fund. Because sometimes when your first roots are torn out, you grow new ones, deeper, stronger, reaching places you never expected. Letters are already arriving. One woman from Vermont wrote, "I thought I was alone, until I read your name." She wasn't. None of them are. At night, when the kitchen is quiet and the last pie has cooled, Ethan sometimes asks me if I'd go back, if I'd change how it all unfolded. I never hesitate. No, I say. Not even the hard parts. He never asks why, but I think he knows. Because every time Jamie runs into my arms, every time Mia leaves a slice of pie on my pillow, every time Ethan leans his head on my shoulder while I read him another paragraph, I remember, this is not a second chance. It's my real life finally beginning. He tried to erase me from the picture. But I found life in a new family. And if you're out there, if you've ever been told to sit down, be quiet, give up, listen carefully. Moms don't vanish. We just change our address.